Good morning. We're going to get started. We're running late. We want to make sure we get the mayor's budget message in. So if all the visitors will retire behind the rail. Thank you very much. To give our invocation this morning, the chair recognizes Monsignor Joseph Garvin of St. Christopher's Parish. Monsignor Garvin is here today as the guest of Councilman O'Neill. I would ask all guests, members, and visitors to please rise.
Let us remember that we are in the presence of Almighty God. God our Father, we ask you to be with us today as we begin this session of City Council. In this cynical age, help us to understand that prayer can change people and institutions. Help us also to know that prayer can bring lasting results, that it can bring unity to our city. It is in that spirit that we ask your blessings for our city and the members of this council. Enlighten them with the spirit of wisdom, charity, and justice, that they may faithfully serve in the office to promote the well-being of the people that they serve, especially the poor and the needy. Keep them forever mindful of the importance and expectation that they be men and women of integrity. Help them to be upright, honest, and sincere in all they do. In a special way, bless the families of the members of this council. Help our council members as they balance their responsibilities between their home and public office. May their family relationships not suffer because of their devotion to their office. May our council members and their families feel the gratitude of their fellow citizens for the sacrifices and times spent on their behalf. Lord, give your blessings to the staff of our city council members. Help them to greet their work with enthusiasm and an eagerness to serve the common good. Finally, dear God, we ask that you give our council members strength, vision, love, and compassion to make them strong and effective leaders. May they experience a spirit of servant leadership as they gather today and every day for the good of all in our city. We place these prayers before you, confident that you will hear and answer them, because you are a good and gracious God who lives and reigns forever and ever. Amen.
Thank you so much, Monsignor. Councilor be at ease. Thank you. And again, Monsignor, thank you so much for those inspiring words and your prayers. Our next order of business is the approval of the journal of the meeting of Thursday, February 27, 2020. And the chair recognizes Councilman Squilla.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the journal of the meeting of Thursday, February 27th, 2020 be approved. Second.
Thank you. It has been moved and properly seconded the journal of the meeting of Thursday, February 27. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, ayes have it, and our journal is approved. And our next order of business is request for leave of absence. And the chair recognizes Councilwoman Parker.
Thank you, Mr. President. On behalf of the members of council, there are no requests for leaves of absence.
Chair thanks the Councilwoman. At this time, I would like to dispense with the regular order of business, and I would like to welcome and thank everyone who has taken time out of their busy day to witness their government in action. Particularly want to thank all members of the administration for being here. I know it was a requirement, but thank you for being here today anyway. I thank you for being here anyway. And I want to thank all elected officials that are here today and say thank you and welcome to our House and all of the individuals who are viewing this today. So again, thank you so much for being here today. Today, we have no presentation, so we will move right into our process. Our next order of business is communications, and the chair requests that the Sergeant of Arms delivers the messages from the mayor to the chief clerk. Mr. Decker, please read those messages.
To the President and members of the Council of the City of Philadelphia, pursuant to Section 12207 of the Home Rule Charter, I am transmitting to the Council the following appointees to the Board of Education: Amin Akbar, Julia Danzi, Letitia Aguirre Hinton, Mallory Fix Lopez, Li Huang, Dr. Maria McColgan, Dr. Christopher McKinley, Dr. Angela McIver, and Joyce Wilkerson. And I hereby recommend your favorable consideration of these appointees. And I am submitting herewith for the consideration of your honorable body a resolution authorizing the Philadelphia Land Bank to dispose of 1421 Letterly Street located in the 5th Councilmanic District, and a resolution authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property to execute and deliver to the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority without consideration deeds conveying conditional fee simple title to certain city-owned lots or pieces of ground with the buildings and improvements thereon situate in the 18th Ward of the City of Philadelphia. And a resolution confirming the appointment of Amin Akbar to the Board of Education of the School District of Philadelphia. And a resolution confirming the reappointment of Julia Danzi to the Board of Education of the School District of Philadelphia. And a resolution confirming the reappointment of Letitia Aguirre Hinton to the Board of Education of the School District of Philadelphia. And a resolution confirming the reappointment of Mallory Fix Lopez to the Board of Education of the School District of Philadelphia. And a resolution confirming the reappointment of Li Huang to the Board of Education of the School District of Philadelphia. And a resolution confirming the reappointment of Dr. Maria McColgan to the Board of Education of the School District of Philadelphia. And a resolution confirming the reappointment of Dr. Chris McKinley to the Board of Education of the School District of Philadelphia. And a resolution confirming the reappointment of Angela McIver to the Board of Education of the School District of Philadelphia. And a resolution confirming the reappointment of Joyce Wilkerson to the Board of Education of the School District of Philadelphia. And a resolution providing for the approval by the Council of the City of Philadelphia of a revised 5-year financial plan for the City of Philadelphia covering fiscal years 2021 through 2025 and incorporating proposed changes with respect to fiscal year 2020, which is to be submitted by the Mayor to the Pennsylvania Intergovernmental Cooperation Authority. And an ordinance authorizing transfers and appropriations for fiscal year 2020 from the General Fund and the Grants Revenue Fund, certain or all city offices, departments, boards, and commissions, to the General Fund, certain or all city offices, departments, boards, and commissions. And an ordinance amending Chapter 192600 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Business Income and Receipts Taxes by revising certain tax rates. And an ordinance amending Chapter 1500 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Wage and Net Profits Tax by revising certain tax rates. And an ordinance adopting the operating budget for fiscal year 2021, and an ordinance to adopt the fiscal 2021 capital budget, and an ordinance to adopt the capital program for the 6 fiscal years 2021 through 2026 inclusive, all under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Decker. Those messages will be printed in today's journal. You have any additional communications?
I had none, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Our next order of business is introduction of bills and resolutions. And the chair recognizes Councilwoman Parker.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have 7 budget bills on your behalf and 1 privilege resolution authored by all of the women of council and supported by all of the enlightened men of council. Councilman Jones.
Thank you so much, Councilwoman.
An ordinance adopting the operating budget for fiscal year 2021. And an ordinance to adopt the fiscal 2021 capital budget. And an ordinance to adopt a capital program for the 6 fiscal years 2021 through 2026 inclusive. And an ordinance amending Chapter 192600 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Business Income and Receipts Taxes by revising certain tax rates. And an ordinance amending Chapter 191500 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Wage and Net Profits Tax by revising certain tax rates. And an ordinance authorizing transfers and appropriations for fiscal year 2020 from the general fund and the grants revenue fund, certain all city offices, departments, boards, and commissions to the general fund, certain all city offices, departments, boards, and commissions.
Those 7 bills just read by the Chief Clerk will be referred to the appropriate committee.
And a privilege resolution congratulating and honoring the Pennsylvania chapter of the National Coalition of 100 Black Women Incorporated on the 34th anniversary of the Madam C.J. Walker Awards Luncheon, and for the organization's commitment to the educational, health, public policy, and economic empowerment of African American women throughout the city of Philadelphia.
That'll be on today's calendar. Chair
And
recognizes.
a non-privileged resolution providing for the approval of the Council of the City of Philadelphia of a revised 5-year financial plan for the City of Philadelphia covering fiscal years 2021 through 2025 and incorporating proposed changes with respect to fiscal year 2020.
And that will be next week's calendar. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today I offer 1 privilege resolution that's being co-sponsored by members Squilla, Gaudier, Green, Gim, O, and co-sponsored by all members of City Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
A privilege resolution recognizing the United Negro College Fund and awardees Stephanie Mays Boyd, Dr. Edith P. Mitchell, and the Philadelphia Foundation on the occasion of the UNCF 2020 Mayor's Masked Ball.
And today's calendar. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Gim.
Good morning, Council President. I have no bills or resolutions today.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilman Heenan.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today I offer 1 resolution.
Thank you, Councilman.
A privilege resolution recognizing and honoring Michael J. Bradley Jr. as the Grand Marshal of the 250th Annual Philadelphia St. Patrick's Day Parade.
And that will be on today's calendar. Chair recognizes Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. Today I offer no bills or resolutions.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilman Johnson.
Thank you, Council President. I have 1 bill and 1 privilege resolution. I would like to speak on it, please.
Thank you, Councilman.
President.
An ordinance providing for the submission to the qualified electors of the City of Philadelphia of an amendment to the Philadelphia Home Rule Charter, providing for the creation of the Office of the Victim Advocate as approved by resolution of the City Council, fixing the date of the special election for such purpose, prescribing the form of ballot question to be voted on, and authorizing the appropriate officers to publish notice and to make arrangements for the special election.
Refer to committee.
And a non-privileged resolution proposing an amendment to the Philadelphia Home Rule Charter, providing for the creation of the Office of the Victim Advocate and providing for the submission of the amendment to the qualified electors of Philadelphia.
Refer to committee. Chair recognizes Councilman Johnson.
Thank you, Council President. Council President and colleagues, today I'm introducing a legislative package to create the Office of Victim Advocate. I want to thank all of the victims who has lost loved ones to gun violence and those who are victims, co-victims, and survivors of gun violence for attending the press conference which we held yesterday regarding the rollout of the legislation. I want to also take a moment and thank my colleague, Councilwoman Catherine Gilmore Richardson, and Kendra Brooks for also attending the press conference, but also, most importantly, being supportive from this effort from day one. The new Philadelphia Victim Advocate Office would serve as a hub for crime victims, survivors, and others affected by crime in general. The office functions would include coordination, planning, and oversight. And I'm calling for the creation of this new office within the City of Philadelphia to work on system-wide issues affecting victims and co-victims, but I have a special interest in those who are victims and survivors of gun violence. The advocates have told me that the fragmented nature of victim services leads to a lack of consistency and timing of outreach, services provided. The new Office of Victim Advocate is long overdue here in the city of Philadelphia. The creation of this new office was among the recommendations I heard from Philadelphians during a recent hearings on the City Council Special Committee on Gun Violence, specifically the Subcommittee on Victims and Co-Victims of Gun Violence, in which I chair along with my colleague, Councilman Curtis Jones. The council hearings provided an overview of the impact on gun violence on survivors, but also provided them an opportunity to voice their issues and concerns. The hearings also examined what anti-violence programs that we are working on, those that work and those that need improvement. To date, we have seen 64 people who have been victims of homicide here in the city of Philadelphia, a 25% increase compared to the same time in 2019. And that's according to statistics provided by the Philadelphia Police Department. In 2019, Philadelphia recorded 356 homicides. That total marked the highest homicide count in over a decade. So as we start this budget process, I've always been a consistent voice when it comes to advocating as it relates to supporting our anti-violence efforts here in the city of Philadelphia. But I want to specifically make sure that mother who lost a son or daughter to gun violence, that father who lost a son or daughter to gun violence, that they are at the table when we talk about policy, that they're at the table when we're talking about resources, that they are at the table when we talk about our comprehensive plan when it comes to fighting the issue of gun violence here in the city of Philadelphia. Thank you very much, Council President, and I want to personally thank you for your support from day one in the creation of the Special Committee on Gun Violence and allowing me through this committee to do the type of work that, one, and most importantly, will allow those who are victims, co-victims, survivors of gun violence have a voice as it relates to the issue of crime and violence here in the city of Philadelphia. Thank you very much, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Keona Sanchez.
Thank you, Council President. I have 9 resolutions on your behalf and 1 non-privileged resolution.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
A non-privileged resolution confirming the reappointment of Julia Danzy to the Board of Education of the School District of Philadelphia, and a resolution confirming the reappointment of Letitia Egan Hinton to the Board of Education of the City of Philadelphia, and a resolution confirming the reappointment of Mallory Fix Lopez to the Board of Education of the City of Philadelphia, and a resolution confirming the reappointment of Dr. Maria McColgan to the Board of Education of the City of Philadelphia, and a resolution reappointing Dr. Chris McGinley to the Board of Education of the City of Philadelphia, and a resolution confirming the reappointment of Angela MacGyver to the Board of Education of the City of Philadelphia, and a resolution confirming the reappointment of Joyce Wilkerson to the Board of Education of the City of Philadelphia, and a resolution confirming the reappointment of Lee Huang to the Board of Education of the School District of Philadelphia, and a resolution confirming the appointment of Amin Akbar to the Board of Education of the School District of Philadelphia.
Those 9 board appointment resolutions just read by the Chief Clerk will be referred to committee.
And a non-privileged resolution authorizing the Commissioner of Public Property to execute and deliver to the Philadelphia Redevelopment Authority without consideration deeds conveying conditional fee simple title to serve city on lots and pieces of ground with the buildings and improvements thereon, situate in the 18th Ward of the City of Philadelphia.
And that will be on next week's calendar. Chair recognizes Councilman Green.
Thank you, Council President. I have 1 non-privileged resolution.
Thank you, Councilman.
A non-privileged resolution calling upon the Trump administration to uphold the collective bargaining rights of federal workers.
And that will be on next week's calendar. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Brooks.
Good morning, Council President. I have no bills or resolutions today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilman Don.
Good morning, Council President. I have 1 resolution today.
Thank you, Councilman.
A privileged resolution authorizing the Committee on Public Health and Human Services to hold hearings on the City of Philadelphia's preparedness for the COVID-19 coronavirus and its plans to respond to an outbreak.
Today's calendar. And the chair recognizes Councilwoman Gauthier.
Good morning, Council President. No bills or resolutions today.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilman Thomas.
Good morning, Council President. I have one non-privileged resolution to introduce on your behalf today.
Thank you, Councilman.
An ordinance establishing parking regulations in the vicinity of Green Street and North 11th Street, North 13th Street and Mount Vernon Street, Allen Street and Germantown Avenue, Wallace Street and North 12th Street, Lawrence Street and Poplar Street, Brandywine Street and North 10th Street, Burke Street and Girard Avenue.
And that bill will be referred to committee. Chair recognizes Councilman O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no bills or resolutions.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilman Squilla.
Thank you, Mr. President. I offer one bill and one privileged resolution.
Thank you, Councilman.
An ordinance authorizing Walnut Street Theater Corporation to construct, own, and maintain a proposed building overhang encroachment at 815 through 23 Walnut Street.
Refer to committee.
And a privilege resolution honoring the Partners for Civic Pride Incorporated for their diligent efforts on spreading the history and pride of the Philadelphia civic flag and marking the 125th anniversary of the Philadelphia civic flag by recognizing March 27, 2020 as Philadelphia Civic Flag Day.
Today's calendar. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Bass.
Thank you, Mr. President. I offer two privileged resolutions and one bill today.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
An ordinance establishing no truck parking regulations on 5800 Musgrave Street.
For the committee.
And a privilege resolution honoring and recognizing Chris Safa, Carlene Neal, Majida Rashid, Debbie Fortune, Sharon Whitaker, and Joyce Drayton on their legacies of leadership and achievement in promoting toxic-free environments, community development services, leadership in state government, and music education in the city of Philadelphia.
Today's calendar.
And a privilege resolution authorizing the City Council Committee on Finance to hold public hearings on the Department of Revenue's policies, practices, and procedures for the collection of taxes, fines, fees, and other charges the department is responsible for collecting.
And that will also be in today's calendar. Chair recognizes Councilman O.
Thank you very much. I offer no bills or resolutions.
Thank you, Councilman. That concludes our introduction of bills and resolutions. And our next order of business is reports from committee, and the chair recognizes Councilman Heenan for a report from the Committee on Public Property and Public Works.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Committee on Public Property and Public Works reports one bill with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. Mr. Decker, please read that report.
To the President and members of the Council of the City of Philadelphia, the Committee on Public Property and Public Works, to which is referred Bill Number 200010, entitled, An Ordinance Authorizing the Procurement Department on behalf of the City of Philadelphia to enter into one or more agreements with a vendor or vendors for the purchase and servicing of online legal research services, investigative tools, and related goods and services. Respectfully reports it has considered the same and returns the attached bill to Council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. Chair again recognizes Councilman Heenan.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the rules of council be suspended as to permit the first reading of this day, Bill Number 200010.
Thank you. It has been moved and properly second that the rules of council be suspended so as to permit first reading this day of bills number 200010. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, ayes have it, and this bill will be placed on our first reading calendar today. That concludes our reports from committee, and our next order of business is consideration of the calendar. I note that the bill just reported from committee with the suspension of the rules have been deemed to have had its first reading today. This bill will be placed on our second reading and final passage calendar at our next session of council. There are apparently no additional bills on the first reading calendar, so the chair recognizes Councilwoman Parker for the purpose of calling up resolutions and bills on the second reading and final passage calendar.
Thank you, Mr. President. The following resolutions and bills are being called up from the second reading and final passage calendars today. They are numbers 200040, 200195, 200006-A, 200007, 200013, 200019, 200004, 200020, 200021, 200023, 200024, 200087, 200091, 200092, 200120, and 200090. All other resolutions and bills are being held.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Before we move on passage of all bills and resolutions on the final passage calendar today, we will have our public comment session. It will go as follows. When your name is called, you will go to the middle of the council chambers. There's a podium, and on that podium there is a device. When the light turns green on that device, you will start your public comment. When the light turns yellow, you will have 30 seconds to conclude your remarks. When the light turns red, we'd ask that you please adhere to our guidelines and conclude your remarks. Your comment must be on a bill or resolution that is on the final passage calendar today. We want to thank you very much for your anticipated cooperation. Mr. Decker, please call the first name on the list.
Mark Snyderman. Mark Snyderman.
Morning.
Good morning. My name is Mark Snyderman. I want to thank City Council and everybody here for letting me speak. I am a 58-year-old drug addict in recovery. I had something planned to say, but I'm going to let my higher power and God take over at this time. Things have changed since I started doing drugs in 1979. Younger people, I am in recovery. I'm in a 12-step program. Younger people come in the 12-step program, and they come in and out. Then the reason why they're homeless is because their families kicked them out because they're using drugs. I've heard a lot of people in my life. I've heard God mostly, my parents, and the people that love me the most. I suffer from disease of addiction. It is a disease, according to the CDC. I'm in therapy. I also go to meetings, and my suggestion is that we have communication between drug addicts and their families to get them off the street. One thing's for sure, everybody's going to go home tonight, and another drug addict will die on the streets of Philadelphia tonight because they don't have the resources that we need to get them clean. Safe drug houses do not work. They started in the 50s and 60s in Haight-Ashbury in California, and they don't work. A drug addict uses because he wants to use. Simply as that. I have triggers that I have to deal with every night, drug dreams that I have to deal with every night, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. And the only person I can go to is God. I want to thank City Council again. Please vote on no safe drug houses. I hope my message doesn't fall on deaf ears. Something needs to be done to address this problem. And I want to thank City Council. Thank you. God bless.
Call the next one. Yeah. Mr. Decker, you call the next person? You want to do it now? Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, Councilwoman, let me recognize. Okay. Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. President. For clarification, I just wanted to note that Bill and resolutions number 200040, 200006A, and 20007 will be placed on the suspension calendar today per my testimony at the Veterans Advisory Commission meeting on the record yesterday. And I wanted to clarify that for all the veterans who are here to provide testimony on those pieces of legislation. Thank you so much.
And Councilwoman, you may want to reference, Councilwoman, for those of us here who don't know what those bill numbers mean, can you reference the subject matter?
Yes, so the bills are related to providing a preference for career and technical education program in school graduates in the city of Philadelphia.
Okay.
They will be placed on the suspension calendar today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Mr. Decker, call the next name.
Lauren Williams. Commenting on 200040.
Good morning. My name is Lauren Williams. I am also the 1st District Commander of Philadelphia. And my reasons here come because I hear complaints about they're taking the veterans' preference, which is not right. It should be, if you're doing things for the kids for trade school, then that's all it should mention in your bill. Not veterans' preference, not anything about the police, the firemen, anything. It should be for those kids, for that trade school. It should be in there that they should maintain a certain grade level, attendance level, in order to get that. Thank you.
Tyrone Love.
Thank you for your testimony, sir.
Commenting on 200040.
Good morning, Mr. President, Council,
Morning.
City of Philadelphia, City Council, also the citizens of Philadelphia. The reason for that I'm here, my name is Tyrone A. Love. I am the commander of Veterans of Foreign Wars Post 3090 that's located at 5212 Ray Street in the West Philadelphia area. Past commander of American Legion Post number 682, which is located in the Mount Airy area. I am also the Director of Veterans Affairs for the state of Pennsylvania for the Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge. The reason for my being here is in reference to the veterans' preference. It's not that we're against the veterans' preference and or the amendment of veterans' preference and or preference for the children. But what we asked for and what was told to me and or what I've heard that you have suspended until further clarification. Is that correct? Okay. So with that, man, I applaud you for doing so. When we do have a chance, I would love to have a sit down with you, okay, whenever you're available. We as veterans, we all know, can I have a show of hands? How many veterans we have here in City Council? City Council only. Okay? So, that being said, we are the reason that everyone that's in here have the right to be here. We as veterans. So all I asked is, don't forget us, because we haven't forgot you. Because many of us have taken an oath to give with a blank check to this country. So don't take what was given to us many years ago. Now, if you want to do anything for veterans or the children that come out of schools, what I ask you to do is how about you add to and not take away. Have a good day.
Thank you for your testimony.
Frank Craniti. Commenting on 200195.
President Clark, thank you for having me here today. City Council, thank you for having me here today. I'm here for 200 195 resolution and speaking on behalf of South Philadelphia and all residents of Philadelphia here, and throughout the country maybe. We do not want the safe site anywhere in the country. Not to say that you're not able to help an addict. You can help an addict, but you're not helping them, giving them money or giving them any more heroin in any of these facilities. I'd like to ask everyone here, I assume that everybody here lives in Philadelphia or close by. Raise your hand if you never got notified for this site that was supposed to be saying. Mayor Jim Kenney says he never had a meeting with the board of directors here, had no knowledge of this. How could that be? Raise your hand if you did not get notified. Everybody in the room. Anybody in the room, raise your hand if you did not get notified in regards to the safe site in South Philadelphia or Philadelphia. I'm sure a lot of city councilmen did get notified. I know that for a fact. And I hope this resolution gets passed to turn around and have no safe sites in this and can be notified, every citizen in Philadelphia, every city council. Now, the ones that are on board for no safe site here, the other 11 should get on board. Because I don't feel it's right that the city councils do not get notified and the people that live in these neighborhoods throughout city Philadelphia or throughout Pennsylvania. President Clark, thank you again. I appreciate you. I'm all for this resolution for no safe site in Philadelphia or throughout the whole country. That's me, and it's a lot of veterans that I'm also a veteran. I'm a veteran. A lot of veterans. I go to Veterans Hospital every month, and a lot of veterans are against any of this. And let me say one more thing, President Council. An addict, and I've been in Philadelphia since 1958. An addict, and I know quite a few of them out there, help them. You don't help them by giving them a $10 bill. You don't help them by giving them money for dope. Heroin, when they turn around and bring that site in there, the heroin addict goes in there with a bag, maybe 2 bags. They don't even know what the quality of that heroin is, how strong it is. They might take an overdose right there in the site. That's 100%. I can guarantee you that if they don't know, that nurse in there that gives safe site don't know the quality of that heroin. Unless they have a scientist or a chemist in there. Thank you very much. I appreciate the offer. Just speaking to these.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony.
Shannon Farrell. Commenting on 200195.
Morning.
Good morning, my name is Shannon Farrell. I'm here today to talk about the resolution about what happened in Philadelphia, not just this past week, but last year as well. This is the second time that Safe House has attempted to open a safe injection site in the city of Philadelphia. The first time happened in Kensington last year. Not many people cared. Last week, they tried it in South Philly. I'm the president of a RCO. There's a process in the neighborhood when you want to put a deck on your house, when you want to put a bakery in my neighborhood, you have to go through the process and come in front of the community. I don't know why you think this is so special that they don't have to do that. They didn't even bother to try and engage the community. It's unfair to let us have a say and you decide for us. This is a democracy, not a dictatorship. And that didn't happen, again, for the second time. And I will note that last year, when they tried this in my community, there was only 2 council members that were enraged by that, and that was Councilwoman Sanchez and Councilman Mark Squilla. So you are already behind. This is twice they've done this. They have proven they do not care and respect our opinion. Coming in and engaging in the community doesn't mean you have to come in and get community support all the time, but you have to come in and acknowledge that they're there, and we've been there much longer than the problem has been. This has to change. This is unfair to everybody. You've made a decision to support something. So if you did so, then why didn't you come to the community? If you're supporting something you don't think they will, well, then that's something maybe you should rethink. I live in a safe injection site. They shoot up on our streets. They leave their needles on the ground. That already happens. Violent drug dealers that shoot the kids that live in my neighborhood. And 500 people were there 3 years ago. I started meeting with the managing director's office 3 years ago, and there's still 500 people on the street. So maybe you should start looking at what you don't do, which is get your services straightened out. Lift the smoking ban. How about provide beds? How about Liz Hirsch saying $31 million would eradicate homelessness? Is that part of this budget today? Because I'd like to see that. I really think that you should disrespect to everybody. For 3 years I've worked with you. You did it last year. You did it again. So I don't know. I don't know what's going to change. I feel like you know that this is not going to be popular, so you're just going to force it down somebody's throat, or it's not going to happen at all. And that's your own fault. There's 2 things I took away from my trip in Toronto. One, the government ran the overdose prevention sites and took responsibility for it where we could hold them accountable. In our neighborhoods, we can't hold people who are private nonprofits accountable for anything. They don't answer to us, you do. And the second thing was they had gun control. So go back and revisit why you're exactly going to support this. Since you don't think you're going to get community support, there's a problem with that. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony.
Joe Danahill. Maureen Farantoni.
Good morning. Fratantoni. Maureen Fratantoni. I'm here from the community of South Philadelphia. I lived here my whole life, 59 years. And may I say, I have never seen anything like this. We were, as one girl said, blindsided. I did not get notice of the meetings, or I did not get notice of this safe injection site. And when they told me about it, I was like, I couldn't believe it. Neither could my son, who has special needs, who attends South Philadelphia High. He thinks this idea is ludicrous, and I do too. I'm for the resolution 2000-195. There has to be transparency within our communities and our government. So we need for you to let us know when these things are going to take place so that we could be there and give our input. Some of the stakeholders, the schools, the principals did not even know about this. And I was floored when I heard that. So no one knew about it or in my community. I live on 11th Street. So the other thing I want to say is about the illegal drugs. If you're bringing illegal drugs, that is against the law. And so I cannot see this. My son cannot see this. My son, they have a methadone clinic near the school, and you see a lot of people hanging around there outside. I'm all for recovery, okay? Make clinics where they can recover and not be a euthanasia clinic. Clinics for recovery to make them clean, not to have them kill themselves in the process. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony.
Susan Lindsay. Commenting on 200195.
Good morning, President.
Good morning.
I'm really upset about how this all went down, with no one being told about these injection sites. Injection sites are not a good idea. Funding for treatment centers, rehab centers, mental health facilities, that's what's going to get addicts help, not injection sites. By opening injection sites, you're facing more drug addicts in the area, more drug dealers in the area, and more crime. So safe injection sites are not the answer. The funding has to go towards these facilities. Put the funding there. Stop trying to make money on drug addiction. Help them. The streets are crawling with addicts. Right where they wanted to open it, at Broad and McKean, we have 2 methadone clinics. They get their methadone, they wait until the high wears, and then they go get high. and you're allowing people to help them get high. They're supplying the bowls to burn for the heroin, needles. My son-in-law, who passed away 3 years ago, had insulin-dependent diabetes. He had to jump through hoops to get his insulin needles. He took 2 different kinds of insulin. The prices are skyrocketing. It's totally ridiculous that they can get these supplies for free, and my son-in-law passed away. Like, what sense does that make? I just don't understand what this city wants to do. But then to do it underhandedly makes things 100 times worse. Not one person in Philadelphia knew about this. Mayor Kenny stated that he was unaware of it. He sits on the council. He sits on the board of Safe Home, so how didn't he know about it? That's a downright lie. Is this what it's coming to now? Our politicians are going to start lying and sneaking around trying. There will not be a safe injection site in this city because we will fight till the death. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony.
There are no other speakers on the public comment list, Mr. President.
Thank you very much for your testimony. That concludes our public comment session. We will now move to our calendar. Mr. Decker, please read the title of 200040.
A resolution proposing an amendment to the Philadelphia Home Rule Charter providing for a preference in civil service examinations for any qualified graduate of a career technical education program in the School District of Philadelphia.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that resolution number 200040 be placed on the suspension calendar.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor? Those opposed? Ayes have it. Bill number 200040 will be placed on suspension calendar. Mr. Decker, please read the title of 200195.
A resolution condemning the lack of transparency and community participation in the implementation of supervised heroin injection sites and urging the mayor and Safe House to stop further development of supervised injection sites so that the impacted residents, businesses, and institutions can be informed and heard.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Brooks.
Thank you, Council President. I will be voting no on a resolution introduced by Council O that urges the mayor and Safe House the mayor and Safe House to seek further development of supervised consumption site. The language used throughout is crafted to inspire fear and spread misinformation. The resolution states that these sites could have a potentially devastating impact on neighborhoods. It also refers to overdose prevention sites as heroin injection facilities. The data on overdose prevention sites is clear. The surrounding communities see a reduction in drug-related arrests, public displays of drug use, and publicly discarded drug paraphernalia. Every single day, Philadelphia uses an average of 3 of our community members to an overdose. If these overdoses took place under the supervision of a medical professional, it would reduce that number to 0. There are over 100 overdose prevention sites across the world, and not a single facility has recorded an overdose death. Furthermore, the resolution introduced alongside a bill that would place extremely strict limitation on the process of opening one of these facilities. The resolution and its accompanying bill would indefinitely delay overdose prevention sites from opening in Philadelphia. I cannot, in good faith, endorse an approach that will lead to more preventable drug-related deaths. Like many of my colleagues,
Quiet. Let her
like
finish.
many of my colleagues, I believe that transparency, education, community involvement should be integral parts of any overdose prevention site opening in Philadelphia. My own evolution and understanding of overdose prevention sites has been shaped through conversations with harm reduction advocates and healthcare specialists. It would be and mistake to deny that opportunity to others. I have seen firsthand how the government can respond to the addiction crisis. My community, my family are still recovering from the war on drugs that criminalized and incarcerated Black people at a shocking rate. For the Black community, the trauma still rings in our bodies, and it would be unforgivable to repeat the same mistakes. What we know now is that criminalization and incarceration do not save but endanger lives. We also know that while the opioid epidemic is largely represented as a public crisis that affects the white community, Black and brown people are overrepresented among those who have died as a result of a drug overdose. I reject the framework that treats the opening of a life-saving medical facility as a moral crisis, but views the death of over 1,000 Philadelphians each year as a norm. We must create a clear and realistic path for overdose prevention sites opening in Philadelphia. I thank Mayor Kinney and the administration for their leadership on the issue, and I also look forward to working with my colleagues in City Council to move this urgent work forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Thank you. Chair recognizes Councilman Squilla.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's very unfortunate that we would have people even here in council today that would not want a public process on anything in a democratic society. When you hear that it's better, that people know better than you, and it's good for them, and you should just do it anyway, tells us that we're moving far away from our democratic priorities. Today, we have instances of people who say they know things, they bring up statistics and evidence, but when countered, they try to say that you were either for killing people or you're for saving people. That is the wrong message that we're giving out there today. And it's a shame that people want to use that instead of having dialogue and conversation to show why they are right. I normally don't speak up and don't speak out because I think we could do this through conversations and communications. But when you get ignored and you get played, it is very upsetting. And when you represent a district that people call you to ask you for help and you don't have an opportunity to answer them because you do not know the answers, is just flat out wrong. And we talk about statistics, we talk about what is going out there. There's evidence-based medicine that is out there that tells us certain things. There's also research and literature that tells us certain things. There's doctors and researchers that tell us through time that these safe injection sites do not work. Keith Humphreys, an addiction research and psychiatric professor from Stanford University, has told us that anybody who looks at this evidence and looks at the statistics and says that CISs are harmful may be wrong. Anybody who also does not demonstrate CISs to not demonstrate overdose deaths over time. It is not proven that there was a recent study, a meta-analysis done from the University of South Wales in the UK, has showed that there was only 8 studies that had transparent and rigorous enough information to use, where the other studies were not transparent and rigorous. They're saying this information that he received was only through those 8 studies, and that therefore the research was not accurate. So we know, if anybody knows, that all the research that is done today has not proven that safe injection site actually saves lives, and yet he even states that it is very possible that safe injection sites, through the use of providing such access, maybe even increases deaths in our cities. If you look at British Columbia, In 2006, there was 226 overdose deaths. They have upwards of 20 safe injection sites throughout British Columbia. Their overdose deaths grew tenfold by 2018 to 1,514 overdoses a year. So we're showing people by bringing them to these sites, these overdose deaths are increasing. Even in Vancouver, in 2008, 38 overdose deaths were in Vancouver. In 2018, over 10 times more overdose deaths are now in Vancouver, 382. Now, these are statistics and facts. So for people to say that we're looking at whether we're saving lives or not saving lives, I think we have to look at these statistics. I think we have to have these conversations. And I think we need to look at a point where we could then talk about the facts of what we're doing, if we are really saving lives or if we're not saving lives. It also says there, Sharon Lewis, who's a professor at Jefferson University, says that she was hired by the city of Philadelphia to look into this. And it says, it tells me if we want to demonstrate that this is an effective strategy for harm reduction, one of many that are out there, we ought to be very careful and thoughtful on how we develop data to answer these important questions before moving forward. So we know that I think we should have a dialogue about this. And for people who support no dialogue and people who think that they should just be able to put things because they know better than others, I think you have to relook at this information, and I think we should be able to have a point of discussion where we can all agree or disagree on if this process works. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Gim.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Chair. I also want to say that I will be voting no on the resolution 200195. I want to thank Councilmember Kendra Brooks for her profound and passionate statement. I also want to explain to this body a little bit, because I agree with many of the people in this room that there needs to be a much better public process that is inclusive and where people are heard. There is no excuse for a process that does not include that. But I think that is different from what is being proffered in the resolution, which I think is important to debunk some of the myths around it. I have visited 3 overdose prevention sites around the world. All 3 of them are massively different from one another. One was government-run, one was nonprofit-run, one was a mix. But there is a lot of clarity that this is a public dialogue and a public responsibility. When I went to Copenhagen and I met with one of the owners of the overdose prevention site, she confronted me with our statistics. 900 people dead in 1 year. She told me that this was more than an entire village in Copenhagen. And she asked why we didn't do something more. There is no question that overdose prevention sites are part of a continuum of care. They are not the solution, they are not the beginning, and they are not the end. But they are part of a continuum of care that recognizes that you cannot recover, you cannot detox, and you cannot survive if you are dead. We need a better conversation. We can do better as a city in terms of public process. 1,200 people are dead. Last year, the year before, the numbers are growing. Our city is in crisis. Our children are watching. Every street right now is an injection site. When we don't have solutions, we have to think through what the possibilities are. I am committed to making this a public process. What became very clear from all of my visits is that any of these facilities need a robust public process, conversations with communities that should have happened, and the ownership of that does belong on this, but that should not prohibit the continued dialogue, exploration, and the urgency and importance by which we need to address this topic head on. So I want to thank Councilmember Brooks for saying that far more articulately than I did. And I'm grateful to all the people in this room. Wherever we are going to have to figure this out together. Thank you.
Thank you. The chair recognizes Councilman O.
Thank you very much. In 2015, I introduced the first and only resolution dealing with this current opioid heroin crisis. It was a resolution to combat heroin opioid epidemic in Philadelphia in 2016. At the time, I never heard of such a thing as a safe injection site. I had formed no opinion for or against. But what I did have was personal experience, as many people in this room have, dealing with the bureaucracy, the limitations, the lack of funding, the lack of treatment, the lack of options for people who are actually trying to get off of drugs. The thing that all experts agree is that the most critical thing is that you make treatment available when a person wants treatment. If they don't want to be treated, it's very hard to force them to try to get off of an addiction as powerful, as detrimental, as evil as heroin. But any time, no matter how many times they relapse or fail, there should be treatment available for them, and not shortening that time, 90 days, being reduced and reduced. It should be for as long as it takes to get someone recovery. And yes, there should be no barriers. We should reduce red tape. The other thing is people are moving around this region from Philadelphia to Delaware County, to Bucks County, to Chester, to Camden. We don't have a regional approach. We have to have early intervention. We don't need a policy of fail first before you get help. But none of these recommendations that was made and adopted by council after 7 community hearings, going into neighborhoods in the Northeast, in Roxborough, in Manayunk, in South Philadelphia, in West Philadelphia, in North Philadelphia, have really been followed through. Yes, we've distributed naloxone, Narcan, we've done that. And we have tried to do a couple other things, but so much of the time and effort has focused on warring with neighborhoods, trying to force them to take in safe injection sites to the point where now all of our effort is being contradicted in a battle with each other. The window is closing when we can help people. What I would say is this: while I oppose, because I agree, after looking at this issue, I've concluded that safe injection sites do far more harm than good. But reasonable people will differ. We have smart, intelligent people on both sides of this issue. The issue that is raised today was created by a sudden and shocking announcement on Wednesday that the next week they were going to operate a safe injection site at Broad and Oregon Avenues without any knowledge, no input, no notice to the community. The institutions like the churches, the daycares, the mosques, the synagogues, the high schools, that process is extremely problematic, and I think it did a great disservice to anyone who wants to advocate for a safe injection site. Yes, everybody understands that neighborhoods don't want it. But to say that they are wrong and have no right to determine the nature of their neighborhood, that they're selfish, that we should force them to accept what some people believe as life-saving when that is in dispute. What I would say is really this: let's be transparent. I've said openly, I am not for them. And I will start with this for the people that keep talking about lives. Count all the lives, not just the lives that you're focused on, all the lives. I start in Mexico. I start where our heroin is coming from. Between 2006 and 2012, 120,000 people were murdered. Not OD'd, not a traffic accident. They were murdered as a result of the drug trade. 27,000 are still missing. Take it into the United States. Bring it to Philadelphia, where you have people killing each other. The thing about a safe injection site, which is contrary to every other treatment, assisted or not assisted with methadone, methadose, whatever you have, they don't do heroin. They don't inject. It's a treatment. The thing about a safe injection site is the person has to go out, and hopefully they're rich enough, I suppose, to get this without committing a crime without prostituting themselves, without putting themselves at risk of murder, to get the money they need for a 14-bag-a-day habit, 7 days a week, every week of the year. That is what people are subjecting these people to. And right now, there are people today and yesterday who are being denied treatment. They want treatment. There's no beds, there's no money, there's no resources. Put the money, the resources into treating people who really want to get off heroin or whatever drug they're on. Make it unlimited. Give them the length of time they need. Help them get a job. The issue for us right now, today, is whether or not people can have a discussion on this and come to the, my point is not necessarily going to prevail, but we start at a point and that process is open. We'll have a hearing on Monday. There will be a vote on it eventually in City Council, maybe held, maybe moved forward, might be voted up or down. That's a democratic process. But coming in here and saying, you don't care about lives, you want to kill people, we're going to stick it where we feel, that is a process that is extremely undemocratic and disrespectful of people's intelligence. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilman Squilla.
And I want to say that, we've been working on this for a while, Council Member Sanchez and myself, amongst others, to raise awareness about this epidemic and how serious it is. And we all have lost loved ones to this horrible disease. We introduced legislation, myself, co-sponsored by many other members, to reduce overprescribing, to be able to get lists for us through the health department that the state was receiving so we could be able to track that information. We provided low barrier housing. We even went as far as working with our harm reduction advocates for distribution of Narcan throughout the communities to help hopefully reduce the overdose deaths. But we still have a lot more work to do. And we need to do that. We increased our budget $5 million last year to hopefully start this process, and $36 million more in the next 5 years to do that. But it's not enough, and we need to meet people where they are. We need to look at hiring researchers and outreach folks to go out there and meet these folks. We got to remove barriers to treatment, as I spoke before. One of the barriers that our city has put in place is to, if you smoke, you cannot get access to treatment. These things are very important that we need to do as a city. We need to get treatment on demand. We need to make sure that as soon as people are ready to get treatment, we have access for them. We need a continuum of care to be able to make sure we follow the folks through the process, to be able to make sure that we engage them at every point of their lives and reconnect them with their families. And then we have to look at our partners in recovery homes. How do we regulate them to make sure that we have as many as possible available to people who still want to be able to go out there and live a good life and try to get off this disease and to be open to making their lives better so that they can enjoy both their families and themselves. So this is a lot of work. We're committed to doing it. We're committed to working together. But whatever we do, we still need a process. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilwoman Kiona Sanchez.
Thank you. And I don't want to belabor the discussion. I want to welcome many people to this discussion, that many of us who've been working on this for the last 12 years, before harm reduction was a term, before we talked about all of the issues around access to treatment. There was a neighborhood of Kensington that became the epicenter of this problem. And I want to thank all of the folks who throughout the last 4 years in particular, 3 years in a more intense way, have begun to learn to listen to each other. When we leave here today, the issue will not be resolved. There will be many conversations about access to treatment. 20% of our treatment slots that go unutilized every day. Access to real treatment when people are ready without all of the barriers as have been mentioned. Let me remind people what we do agree upon, because ultimately we got to continue to listen to each other. We agree on education, harm reduction, what we do and how we treat people and where we meet them is different for everyone. We can talk about prevention. the need to expand prevention and availability of information for folks is hugely important. The state needs to do more around its regulatory practices and stopping Philadelphia from being able to meet people where they are. Recovery house reform, rooming houses, all of the things that we need to get people out of the street and into a place with some dignity so that we can help them on their lifetime journey of recovery. Let me remind people what we agree upon. Screaming at each other, disrespecting each other is not listening to each other. Telling someone is wrong for how they feel is not listening to each other. Telling someone what they can have on their block, in their neighborhood, is not listening to each other. All you have to do is go to Kensington to see that what is happening there is not the way we want the rest of the city to look like. The fact that we have folks in addiction, 500, and to Kensington's credit, they call them the outside visitors, 500 people in addiction, defecating, open needle exchange, all of those things. Some people will go into a safe injection site if one ever got up. The majority of the people who are on Kensington will not.
Folks.
This is part of the problem. We don't listen to each other. You can't change how people feel about this. People in Kensington have deserved and deserve better than what we've had there. The last 3 years, we made tremendous progress from the community and the advocates. The community of Kensington allowed 2 respite centers to be put up in their neighborhood so that we can help move people from the streets. The community of Kensington allowed us to do Narcan distribution, needle exchange, all of those things. The community of Kensington has demonstrated its willingness to be open. But when we say people are wrong for feeling what they feel, for believing what they believe, we're not being respectful to a process. So I'm going to end where I started. We agree that we need to do more education. We agree that we need to do more prevention. We agree that we need to really meet people where they are without barriers. We agree that there should always be a process. And we agree that we need to be respectful around how we have these conversations. This is not a delay process. I said this last week and I'll continue to say it. This is a leadership moment. If government is going to do this, government has to lead. It has to create a process where people are heard, and then ultimately it acts in a responsible way. What we have in Kensington is not responsible. We have a lot of restoration to do in Kensington. Folks, let's not lose this conversation by calling each other out as opposed to listening to each other and leading on this issue. If you want people to be sympathetic to you, people talk about 1,200 folks. I remind people, I can give you names, and I'm happy to spell out all the names of all the funerals that I have been to, and unfortunately the funerals that I will be at, because again, the access to treatment, the destigmatizing of this disease is a lifetime journey. It's going to take us decades to get through this process. But everybody is entitled to feel how they feel. Everybody is entitled to be heard. And no one should be labeled regardless of which side of this issue they're on. Let's leave here today with that renewed commitment. I know the leadership in Kensington is committed to that because we've created a space where we have more respect for each other in this conversation. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Chair recognizes Councilman Green.
Thank you, Council President. I will be very brief. I think you heard the passion from both sides of this issue. There is a fear that we'll have well over 1,000 deaths again in 2020, but there's also the fear of what this type of facility will bring to someone's neighborhood. And I think if you listen to all the conversations from all the people who've been working on this issue recently and also for a number of years, the key issue from my observation that caused such concern was a lack of dialogue and a lack of a process. When Councilmember Sanchez and Squilla went to Toronto to see a safe injection site in operation, my understanding is that the information that was provided is that you have to have a community engagement process in order for this type of facility to be successful. And it reminds me, I want to remind people in this room who may not remember the work of late Councilmember Joan Krajewski, who brought a methadone clinic to her district on State Road. And there was a lot of opposition, and she was not in support of it. But it was through an ongoing conversation with near neighbors that Northeast Treatment Center was able to bring a methadone clinic to State Road. And so when I had a chance to tour that clinic among a number of other clinics over the past couple of years, when we went there, the near neighbors were not concerned about Northeast Treatment Center, but they were concerned about the nuisance bar across the street. The reason why they got to that position is because of communication and a process. And this situation did not have the same dialogue and the same process, and I think that's what's caused the fear from a number of perspectives. So I look forward to continuing this conversation, but we must have a process that all people are engaged with so we can reduce the fear. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilman Johnson.
Thank you, Council President. And I was trying to really just take this information in, but as myself, serving as the council person in the 2nd Councilmanic District is where the proposed site was proposed. And so just being a young man who grew up in South Philadelphia all my life, I'm not going to let anyone ever kind of lecture me on what my community looks like when it comes to drug addiction, ravaged the crack epidemic that ravaged our community, or most importantly, heroin addiction. And it didn't just all of a sudden just start as recently as now. We all know individuals who came back from Vietnam in our communities addicted to heroin. And so this topic isn't new, primarily to the African American community. But why I support Councilman David O's resolution, because it talks about a process of transparency. It talks about the process of making sure the community in which this site is going to be located, whether it's in the 2nd Councilmanic District or any other part of the city, making sure that that process is one that's inclusive, and most importantly, the people that live inside that neighborhood have a say-so. I've been elected official close to 15 years now, serving in the State House before I became a council person. And I recognize how government works. If this site was proposed in Rittenhouse Square, if this site was proposed in Manayunk, it would be a different type of conversation. Because I recognize how city services are distributed. I recognize even we have a school district, and with all due respect, when we talk about resources, I know which schools receive more resources than schools in impoverished neighborhoods. And so when we talk about putting a site like this in any neighborhood throughout the city of Philadelphia, we want to make sure that the process is inclusive. We want to make sure that the people who live inside the neighborhood have a seat at the table. I want to commend Councilman Mark Squilla, who borders the 2nd Councilmanic District in the 1st, for working on this issue with me. And again, it's not about if you don't support safe injection sites that you don't support individuals who are in recovery. You don't support individuals who are addressing issues of addictions. That's not the case at all. We just have different philosophies on how we think people should be treated when it comes to the opioid crisis. And so I really want to just observe and recognize this process and this discussion. But at the end of the day, it was my neighborhood where the site was proposed. It was my constituents who called me an outrage. It was the parents of the daycare center, the 2 daycare centers that were located. And it's a little different when you're a district council person, because we have direct people we have to respond to. And so at the end of the day, Council President, if you could just allow me to just wrap up, we're going to always represent the individuals who put us in office, and that's it. It has to be an inclusive and transparent process. Thank you very much, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman. Chair recognizes Councilman O for brief remarks.
Not a remark. I'm making a motion for a roll call vote.
All right.
Thank you.
There's a request for a roll call vote. I'm assuming there's no objection to that. Second. Pardon me? All right. Move the adoption. There's a second. Second. All in favor? Mr. Decker, well, we're going to do roll call. Mr. Decker, call the roll.
Councilwoman Bass. Councilwoman Brooks. Councilman Dom. Councilwoman Gauthier.
Aye.
Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson.
Aye.
Councilman Green. Councilwoman Gim.
No.
Councilman Heenan.
Aye.
Councilman Johnson.
Aye.
Councilman Jones.
Aye.
Councilman O.
Aye.
Councilman O'Neill. Councilwoman Parker.
Aye.
Councilwoman Quinones Sanchez.
Aye.
Councilman Squilla.
Aye.
Councilman Thomas.
Aye.
Council President Clark.
Aye. Ayes are 15 and nays are 2. Resolution 20095 is adopted. Mr. Decker, please read the title of 20006A.
An ordinance providing for the submission to the qualified electors of the City of Philadelphia of an amendment to the Philadelphia Home Rule Charter to provide for a preference in civil service examinations for any qualified graduate of a career technical education program in the School District of Philadelphia is approved by resolution of the City Council.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that Bill number 200006-A be placed on the suspension calendar.
It's been moved and probably second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, ayes have it. Bill number 20006A is placed on the suspension calendar. Mr. Decker, please read the title of 2000007.
An ordinance amending Chapter 201100 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Civil Service Preferences to provide for a civil service preference for qualified graduates of career technical education programs in the School District of Philadelphia.
Hold on a second. Folks, as you all leave, can you please be as quiet as possible? Thank you for your cooperation. Chair can recognize is Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that Bill number 200007 be placed on the suspension calendar.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it. Bill number 200007 is on the suspension calendar. Mr. Decker, 2000013.
An ordinance to amend the Philadelphia zoning maps by changing the zoning designations of certain areas of land located within an area bounded by Moore Street, 26th Street, Moore Street, and 27th Street.
This bill has been heard on 2 separate days. The question is, shall the bill pass finally? Mr. Decker, call the roll.
Councilwoman Bass. Aye. Councilwoman Brooks.
Aye.
Councilman Dom. Councilwoman Gauthier. Aye. Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson.
Aye.
Councilman Green. Councilwoman Gim. Councilman Heenan. Councilman Johnson. Councilman Jones. Councilman O. Councilman O'Neill. Councilwoman Parker. Councilwoman Quinones Sanchez. Councilman Squilla. Councilman Thomas. Council President Clark.
Aye. Ayes are 17 and nays are 0. Majority of members present voting in the affirmative, the bill passes. Mr. Decker, 2000019.
An ordinance amending Chapter 14500 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Overlay Zoning Districts by amending Section 14514 entitled FNE Far Northeast Overlay District.
This bill has been heard on 2 separate days. The question is, shall the bill pass finally? Mr. Decker, call the roll.
Councilwoman Bass. Councilwoman Brooks. Councilman Dom. Councilwoman Gauthier. Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson. Councilman Green. Councilwoman Gim. Councilman Heenan. Councilman Johnson. Councilman Jones. Councilman O. Councilman O'Neill. Councilwoman Parker. Councilwoman Quinones Sanchez. Councilman Squilla. Councilman Thomas. Council President Clark.
Aye. The ayes are 17 and nays are 0. Majority of members present voting in the affirmative, the bill passes. Mr. Decker, 2000004.
An ordinance authorizing the striking from City Plan Number 120 and abandonment of a certain right-of-way reserved for various public utility purposes extending from 20th Street to 21st Street, south of Oxford Street.
Thank you. This bill has been heard on 2 separate days. The question is, shall the bill pass finally? Mr. Decker, call the roll.
Councilwoman Bass. Councilwoman Brooks. Councilman Dom. Councilwoman Gauthier. Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson. Councilman Green. Councilwoman Gim. Councilman Heenan. Councilman Johnson. Councilman Jones. Councilman O. Councilman O'Neill. Councilwoman Parker. Councilwoman Quinones Sanchez. Councilman Squilla. Councilman Thomas. Council President Clark.
Aye. The ayes are 17 and nays are 0. Majority of members present voting in the affirmative, the bill passes. Mr. Decker, 2000020.
An ordinance establishing no truck parking and tow-away regulations on Chesterfield Road.
This bill has been heard on 2 separate days. The question is, shall the bill pass finally? Mr. Decker, call the roll.
Councilwoman Bass. Councilwoman Brooks. Councilman Dom. Councilwoman Gautier. Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson. Councilman Green. Councilwoman Gim. Councilman Heenan. Councilman Johnson. Councilman Jones. Councilman O. Councilman O'Neill. Councilwoman Parker. Councilwoman Quinones Sanchez. Councilman Squilla. Councilman Thomas. Council President Clark.
Aye, the ayes are 17, the nays are 0. Majority of members present voting in affirmative, the bill passes. Mr. Decker, 200021.
An ordinance establishing no truck parking and tow-away regulations on Grant Avenue.
This bill has been heard on 2 separate days. The question is, shall the bill pass finally? Mr. Decker, call the roll.
Councilwoman Bass. Councilwoman Brooks. Councilman Dom. Councilwoman Gautier. Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson. Councilman Green. Councilwoman Gim. Councilman Heenan. Councilman Johnson. Councilman Jones. Councilman O. Councilman O'Neill. Councilwoman Parker. Councilwoman Quinones Sanchez. Councilman Squilla. Councilman Thomas. Council President Clark.
Aye, the ayes are 17, the nays are 0. Majority of members present voting in affirmative, the bill passes. Mr. Decker, 200023.
An ordinance establishing parking regulations in the vicinity of Alney Avenue and North 15th Street, Nedrow Avenue and Old York Road, Chew Avenue and North 18th Street, Abbotsford Avenue and Schuyler Street, Carlisle Street and Duncannon Street, Lindley Avenue and North 15th Street, North 19th Street, and Chew Avenue.
This bill has been heard on 2 separate days. The question is, shall the bill pass finally? Mr. Decker, call the roll.
Councilwoman Bass. Councilwoman Brooks. Councilman Dom. Councilwoman Gautier. Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson. Councilman Green. Councilwoman Gim. Councilman Heenan. Councilman Johnson. Councilman Jones. Councilman O. Councilman O'Neill. Councilwoman Parker. Councilwoman Quinones Sanchez. Councilman Squilla. Councilman Thomas. Council President Clark.
Aye, the ayes are 17, the nays are 0. Majority of members present voting in affirmative, the bill passes. Mr. Decker, 200024.
An ordinance establishing parking regulations in the vicinity of Indiana Street and Broad Street, North 15th Street and Tioga Street, North 16th Street and Ontario Street to Butler Street.
This bill has been heard on 2 separate days. The question is, shall the bill pass finally? Mr. Decker, call the roll.
Councilwoman Bass. Councilwoman Brooks. Councilman Dom. Councilwoman Gautier. Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson. Councilman Green. Councilwoman Gim. Councilman Heenan. Councilman Johnson. Councilman Jones. Councilman O'Neill. Councilman O. Councilwoman Parker. Councilwoman Quinones Sanchez. Councilman Squilla. Councilman Thomas. Council President Clark.
Aye, the ayes are 17, the nays are 0. Majority of members present voting in affirmative, the bill passes. Mr. Decker, 200087.
An ordinance amending Section 9205 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Sidewalk Sales to permit vending in certain areas of the vicinity of 56th Street between Haverford Avenue and Vine Street, 57th Street between Haverford Avenue and Vine Street between 56th Street and 57th Street.
This bill has been heard on 2 separate days. The question, shall the bill pass finally? Mr. Decker, call the roll.
Councilwoman Bass. Councilwoman Brooks. Councilman Dom. Councilwoman Gautier. Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson. Councilman Green. Councilwoman Gim. Councilman Heenan. Councilman Johnson. Councilman Jones. Councilman O. Councilman O'Neill. Councilwoman Parker. Councilwoman Quinones Sanchez. Councilman Squilla. Councilman Thomas. Council President Clark.
Aye, the ayes are 17, the nays are 0. Majority of members present voting in affirmative, the bill passes. Mr. Decker, 20091.
An ordinance establishing parking regulations in the vicinity of South 13th Street and Kimball Street, Juniper Street and Catherine Street, Carpenter Street and South 6th Street, East Passyunk Avenue and Kimball Street, South 12th Street and Catherine Street.
This bill has been heard on 2 separate days. The question is, shall the bill pass finally? Mr. Decker, call the roll.
Councilwoman Bass. Councilwoman Brooks. Councilman Dom. Councilwoman Gautier. Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson. Councilman Green. Councilwoman Gim. Councilman Heenan. Councilman Johnson. Councilman Jones. Councilman O. Councilman O'Neill. Councilwoman Parker. Councilwoman Quinones Sanchez. Councilman Squilla. Councilman Thomas. Council President Clark.
Aye, the ayes are 17, nays are 0. Majority of members present voting in the affirmative, the bill passes. Mr. Decker, 200092.
An ordinance authorizing Independence Park Hotel to construct, own, and maintain a proposed exterior building ramp at 235 Chestnut Street.
This bill has been heard on 2 separate days. The question is, shall the bill pass finally? Mr. Decker, call the roll.
Councilwoman Bass. Councilwoman Brooks. Councilman Dom. Councilwoman Gautier. Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson. Councilman Green. Councilwoman Gim. Councilman Heenan. Councilman Johnson. Councilman Jones. Councilman O. Councilman O'Neill. Councilwoman Parker. Councilwoman Quinones Sanchez. Councilman Squilla. Councilman Thomas. Council President Clark.
Aye, the ayes are 17, the nays are 0. Majority of members present voting in the affirmative, the bill passes. Mr. Decker, 200120.
An ordinance authorizing the striking from City Plan Number 185 and abandonment of a certain right-of-way reserved for drainage purposes in the area lying east of Pelham Road and southeast of Horter Street, and the plotting upon said city plan of a new right-of-way for sewer and drainage purposes in an alternate location within the same area.
This bill has been heard on 2 separate days. The question is, shall the bill pass finally? Mr. Decker, call the roll.
Councilwoman Bass. Councilwoman Brooks. Councilman Dom. Councilwoman Gautier. Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson. Councilman Green. Councilwoman Gim. Councilman Heenan. Councilman Johnson. Councilman Jones. Councilman O. Councilman O'Neill. Councilwoman Parker. Councilwoman Quinones Sanchez. Councilman Squilla. Councilman Thomas. Council President Clark.
Aye, the ayes are 17, the nays are 0. Majority of members present voting in the affirmative, the bill passes. Mr. Decker, please read the title of 200090.
An ordinance amending Chapter 93400 of the Philadelphia Code entitled Energy Conservation by amending Section 93403 entitled Solar Panel and Incentives, amending certain definitions.
This bill has been heard on 2 separate days. The question is, shall the bill pass finally? Mr. Decker, call the roll.
Councilwoman Bass. Councilwoman Brooks. Councilman Dom. Councilwoman Gautier. Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson. Councilman Green. Councilwoman Gim. Councilman Heenan. Councilman Johnson. Councilman Jones. Councilman O. Councilman O'Neill. Councilwoman Parker. Councilwoman Quinones Sanchez. Councilman Squilla. Councilman Thomas. Council President Clark.
Aye, the ayes are 17, the nays are 0. Majority of members present voting in the affirmative, the bill passes. Mr. Decker, you have any additional resolutions?
A resolution congratulating and honoring the Pennsylvania chapter of the National Coalition of 100 Black Women Incorporated on the 34th anniversary of the Madam C.J. Walker Awards Luncheon, and for the organization's commitment to the educational, health, public policy, and economic empowerment of African American women throughout the city of Philadelphia, introduced by Councilwoman Parker.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Parker.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
Moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, ayes have it. That resolution is adopted.
And a resolution recognizing the United Negro College Fund and awardees Stephanie Mays Boyd, Dr. Edith P. Mitchell, and the Philadelphia Foundation on the occasion of the UNCF 2020 Mayor's Masked Ball, introduced by Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution recognizing and honoring Michael J. Bradley Jr. as the Grand Marshal of the 250th Annual Philadelphia St. Patrick's Day Parade, introduced by Councilman Heenan.
Chair recognizes Councilman Heenan.
I move for the adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution authorizing the Committee on Public Health and Human Services to hold hearings on the City of Philadelphia's preparedness for the COVID-19 coronavirus and its plans to respond to an outbreak, introduced by Councilman Dom.
Chair recognizes Councilman Dom.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution honoring the Partners for Civic Pride Incorporated for their diligent efforts on spreading the history and pride of the Philadelphia civic flag, and marking the 125th anniversary of the Philadelphia civic flag by recognizing March 27, 2020 as Philadelphia Civic Flag Day, introduced by Councilman Squilla.
Chair recognizes Councilman Squilla.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution honoring and recognizing Chris Sofa, Carlene Neal, Majida A. Rashid, Debbie Fortune, Sharon Whitaker, and Joyce Drayton on their legacies of leadership and achievement in promoting toxic-free environments, community development services, leadership in state government, and music education in the city of Philadelphia, introduced by Councilwoman Bass.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Bass.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
And a resolution authorizing the City Council Committee on Finance to hold public hearings on the Department of Revenue's policies, practices, and procedures for the collection of taxes, fines, fees, and other charges that the department is responsible for collecting, introduced by Councilwoman Bass.
Chair again recognizes Councilwoman Bass.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for the adoption of the resolution.
It's been moved and properly second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, ayes have it, and that resolution is adopted.
There are no other resolutions on the final passage calendar, Mr. President.
Thank you very much, Mr. Decker. Okay, our next order of business will be the presentation of the mayor's budget message. Before we start that process, wait till he has something to say. Wait till you hear just one real quick housekeeping note, and we've had several interesting budget messages. Just the decorum as it relates to our budget message, we would ask that you refrain from any outbursts or comments. This is not public comment session, so we would like you to respect this house, which is the people's house. I want to thank you very much for your anticipated cooperation. It is clearly advised that people should applaud. So, the Philadelphia Home Rule Charter states that the mayor shall submit to council no later than 90 days before the end of the fiscal year his operating budget message and proposed operating budget ordinance for the ensuing fiscal year. At the same time, the mayor shall submit to council the recommended capital program and capital budget as received from the City Planning Commission to the extent approved by the mayor. I now appoint the following committee to escort the mayor into the council chambers: Councilwoman Parker, Councilman Jones, Councilman Squilla, and Councilman O, and Councilwoman Brooks. Would you please escort the mayor? Thank you. Mr. Mayor. Ladies and gentlemen, I am pleased to introduce the mayor of the City of Philadelphia, Mayor James F. Kinney.
Thank you, Council President Clark and members of City Council for inviting me to speak here today. It's always great to be back in this chamber, and it's hard to believe that this is already my 5th budget address as mayor. I often think of the popular saying about parenthood that many of you have probably heard. The days are long, but the years are short. That pretty much sums up how it feels to be mayor. The days definitely feel long, but the years fly by, and I know that this term will go as quickly as the first. I share this sentiment as a bit of advice for our new council members, Kendra Brooks, Jamie Gauthier, Catherine Gilmore Richardson, and Isaiah Thomas. There is a finite There is a finite period of time for each of us to make a positive impact on our city as elected officials. I look forward to working with all of you to do just that. The fiscal year 2021 budget and the 5-year plan builds on the agenda we discussed back in January, just up North Broad Street at the Met. Fighting for a safer and more just city, providing quality education for all, delivering cleaner and safer streets, building inclusive and resilient neighborhoods, creating a more diverse, efficient, and effective government. These are the top priorities of our administration. The key investments in this plan and the capital program will advance these specific goals and ultimately help lift at least 100,000 Philadelphians out of poverty. This is a priority I know we all share. Our administration's anti-poverty strategy focuses on providing support for those in need now, helping Philadelphians raise their incomes, and investing in policies and programs that will break the cycle of intergenerational poverty. These investments double down on programs we know are working for our residents, such as PHL Pre-K, community schools, and Rebuild. They also fund the commitments we've made to prioritize key issues over the next 4 years. Let me begin with our top priority of creating a safer and more just city for us all. Before I do so, I was going to recognize Commissioner Danielle Outlaw, who had to leave on business, and I just want to give her a round of applause in her absence. Less than a month on the job, and she's already brought a fresh perspective to our city. I want to thank the public for welcoming her graciously. I ask that you continue praying for her success and supporting her and our department in the days and years ahead. Make no mistake, her success is our city's success. Commissioner Outlaw is leading our administration's efforts to transform police-community relations, make necessary internal reforms, and reduce this senseless violence. But we know that she can't do that alone. We also know that to be successful, the department needs strategic investments required of modern policing. That's why this budget calls for a $5.7 million for staff and technology needed to expand Operation Pinpoint. This initiative is starting to show positive results in the target areas, including a 17% year-to-date decrease in homicides and significant decreases in shooting victims in pinpoint areas. Because of this progress, we expect to expand Pinpoint to 3 more police districts. We will also increase the use of body-worn cameras and improve training to eliminate racial bias. And as Council President Clark has called for, this budget allows us to hire public safety enforcement officers to help ensure more police officers are where we need them most, in neighborhoods preventing violent crime. To better address issues of gender discrimination and sexual harassment within the police department, we've earmarked $360,000 to expand the capacity of the Employees Relations Unit of the Mayor's Office of Labor. This will allow them to assume the investigatory process for PPD, taking those investigations outside of the department. We'll also continue to fight for improvements to the disciplinary process as part of the upcoming collective bargaining agreement, a priority highlighted by our freshman council members. We'll work hard with the FOP to protect the rights of our officers while also strengthening Commissioner Outlaw's ability to hold bad cops accountable. We know this is a top concern for the department and our residents. To reduce and prevent gun violence that has been tearing our communities apart, this plan adds $8 million a year for the implementation of evidence-based and community-informed strategies in the Philadelphia Roadmap for Safer Communities. We will expand the Community Crisis Intervention Program and fund a rapid response team that can respond to communities experiencing deep trauma. We also continue making targeted community investment grants, expand youth employment programs, and reduce neighborhood blight. A shared priority we have with Council Members Jones and Johnson is launching group violence intervention, otherwise known as focused deterrence. Strategy involves targeted outreach to the small and active number of people involved in street groups. It offers incentives such as training and employment for compliance, along with swift consequences for criminal activity. This approach is supported by numerous successful cases of violence reduction in other cities across the country. To support initiatives like group violence intervention, our gun violence investments include $2 million in a new transitional jobs program that has successfully reduced violence in other major cities. Since most of our crimes stem from poverty and lack of opportunity, we will provide job training and jobs to residents who are at the highest risk of being involved in violence. All these strategies and more aim to reduce homicides by 30% and shootings by 25% by the end of this term. We're confident with the unified effort as well as continued lobbying for common sense gun reform at the state and federal levels, we can achieve this goal. Over the life of this plan, we'll continue building on the success of our criminal and juvenile justice reform efforts. As we know, long-term sustainability of criminal justice reforms requires deep and meaningful collaboration with the communities most impacted by mass incarceration. We remain committed to reinvesting savings from our reforms directly into impacted communities. The Office of Reentry Partnerships will enhance and streamline connections to resources that residents returning from incarceration need to thrive, such as high-quality workforce training, housing, and other supports. We'll also launch our first Neighborhood Resource Center. This will be a network of community centers where people can report to their probation officer in their own neighborhood and access services alongside family members and neighbors. The vision for these centers is to remove barriers and transform supervision to ensure that people receive the support that they need to move forward. And we'll work with our partners to make Philadelphia's pretrial system more equitable. That means working to eliminate cash bail, a practice that causes people living in poverty to languish in our jails awaiting trial simply because they cannot afford to pay for their freedom. We are also increasing opportunities for diversion away from the criminal and juvenile justice system and into services at the point of law enforcement contact. All of these efforts will help us promote safety and racial equity while reducing the jail population by 50% from where it was in 2015. We are continuing the work of collaborative and data-driven criminal justice reform through the MacArthur Foundation Safety and Justice Challenge. But to truly prevent crime and reduce the need for incarceration in the first place, the most critical and impactful investment we can continue to make is in quality education. That's why this plan includes an unprecedented $2 billion for education from PHL to K-12 to community college. By fiscal year 2023, we will be providing quality pre-K to 5,500 children every single school year. 4 years ago, we were debating how to fund this transformative program, and now we are setting up our youngest learners and their families for success in elementary school and beyond. I want to thank you for help making this initiative so successful. For our public school students, we're investing $267 million in fiscal year 21 for the School District of Philadelphia, a $45 million increase over fiscal year 20. As you know, I firmly believe the only way to create lasting equity in Philadelphia is to ensure all of our city's children, regardless of their zip code, have schools, great schools in their neighborhoods. During our first term, we proudly put Philadelphia's future back in the hands of residents by returning the school district to local control and giving it fiscal stability for the first time in recent history. Not only did we launch PHL Pre-K and community schools, but we also redesigned our entire $23 million out-of-school time system. And we are working in close partnerships with the district to redesign our $100 million behavioral health system. With the support and advocacy of Councilmember Gim, we appointed a diverse local school board and are investing more than $1.4 billion in funding in the district. I'm very proud of the District of Momentum, having recently celebrated 4 straight years of steady progress of schools citywide. Under the leadership of Superintendent Dr. William Height and School Board President Joyce Wilkerson, more students are reading on grade level and graduating on time. And we have better supportive services to meet the extensive needs of our students and their families. So please join me in giving Dr. Height, President Wilkerson, and our entire Board of Education a round of applause to thank them for their service to our city. All that said, Dr. Height, President Wilkerson, and I are keenly aware that there's much more work to do until we can confidently say all of our schools, district-led and charter, are where they need to be. But creating a system of great schools requires resources. Governor Wolf's budget is promising, and our local delegation is working hard to do everything it can to bring more funding into Philadelphia public schools. But we will once again be called on to step up for our kids. The crisis with lead and asbestos removal in our schools is evidence enough that decades of cuts and disinvestments come at a price. While the district remains stable this fiscal year, its future financial condition is tenuous. And I refuse to return to the days of draconian cuts and wondering whether schools will open on time. It is our generation who must have the political courage to act and lead our city from a legacy of survival to a future of students actually thriving. In addition to providing our K-12 system with increased funding, this next term brings another area of focus for our administration. When I think about how we can make a real impact on reducing poverty, improving educational attainment, and preparing a highly skilled workforce, no institution provides a greater opportunity than the Community College of Philadelphia. CCP is the predominant gateway to greater economic mobility for graduates of Philadelphia Public Schools. It enrolls just over 1,600 recent high school graduates each year. And that number does not even include the thousands of adults advancing their education and career goals by attending community college. CCP offers more than 100 associate degree and certificate programs. Proficiency certificates are available in a number of occupations, from accounting and advanced automotive repair to architectural visualization, biomedical equipment, and cybersecurity. Associate degrees also are offered for in-demand careers such as engineering science, nursing, computer science, dental hygiene, and digital forensics. And the evidence is clear. A post-secondary credential or college degree is essential to thrive in today's rapidly changing economy. Yet rising costs of higher education and the student debt crisis are harming students' ability to access and complete their education. Raising the city's 2- and 4-year degree attainment rates is a major component of our inclusive growth strategy. And if we are serious about achieving that goal, we must address the dual challenges of tuition affordability and basic needs and security. So with all this in mind, I propose in this plan a major investment of $63 million in new funding for Community College of Philadelphia to launch the Octavius Cato Scholarship. The Cato Scholarship is a last dollar tuition model that effectively closes the gap between other financial aid and the student's remaining balance. It will also provide basic needs and academic supports that foster degree completion. We have a simple but vital goal to significantly increase graduation rates for full-time CCP students. We know that tuition is not the only significant barrier to graduation. In fact, more than half of the respondents to the recent Temple University study indicated they were housing and food insecure. That is why we are combining last dollar funding with additional support to remove the burdens that hit many of our students, especially those living in poverty, particularly hard. We'll give each first-time full-time student in the program $1,500 per semester to offset the cost of books, transportation, and food. The city will also work with CCP to better connect more of their students to public benefits, child care, and housing supports. The Cato Scholarship will give these transformative opportunities to a projected 6,500 students over the next 5 years, and will provide over $700,000 in funding to expand opportunities for dual enrollment and summer bridge programs to ensure our Cato scholars are ready for the rigor of college. Mountains of data tell us that this investment will make a real difference in people's lives, while also promoting the economic prosperity of our city over the long term. But it was cemented even more for me personally after talking to some of our students. Take Lilia, a senior at George Washington High School, one of our community schools in the Northeast. Lilia and her parents are from Algeria and arrived in Philly 6 years ago. They came to Philadelphia determined to find more educational opportunities and a better life. Despite the challenges that she faced in high school as an English learner and during her mother's battle with a serious illness, Lilia is ambitious, resilient, and dedicated to her education. She now speaks 3 languages, including English, and is the vice president of a mentorship program for immigrant girls at George Washington, a program the community school coordinator helped to establish. In fact, Lilia's leadership role took her to Harvard University to present at an alumni conference last spring. Lilia wants to follow in her parents' footsteps and study medicine, which they practiced in Africa, and she's on the right track. Next week, she will begin an internship in our Department of Public Health through the community school's New City Interns program. And in the fall, she will go to CCP. With enough support to complete a degree at CCP, Lilia can then transfer to study pre-med at Temple University. I know that our city can help fulfill her dream and her family's dream of a better life through education. We can also help current full-time CCP students like Brittany, who lives in Southwest Philadelphia. Brittany has studied business and Spanish at CCP and also hopes to transfer to Temple after graduating with her associate's degree. She is also a single mom and works 2 jobs to support herself and her daughter. This is not easy. Given these challenges, I am glad that Brittany's daughter Elizabeth is one of our PHL pre-K students. She goes to school right across the street from CCP at Spring Garden Academy. This center has the state's highest quality rating, and because of PHL pre-K, Elizabeth attends for free. Brittany can focus on her studies, knowing that her daughter is in a safe and high-quality learning environment. And Elizabeth already knows some big words like impressive, which is exactly how I describe her and her mother. Lilia and Brittany are here with us today, and I would like to ask them to stand. From Southwest Philly to the Northeast and every neighborhood in between, these determined young adults represent our Caddo scholars, who we as a city will help achieve the American dream. So I want to send a clear message to our high school students, especially those who may think college is out of reach or simply cannot afford it. If you work hard and graduate high school, you can go to community college full-time, tuition free, and even get money for books, transportation, and food. We're committed to this because I believe in you, everyone in this chamber believes in you, and the city of Philadelphia cares about you. So now that I've shared the largest new investment in our plan, I want to shift focus to the capital program. It's particularly related to our goal of creating cleaner and safer streets. The single largest capital investment continues to be addressing the quality of our streets, to the tune of $52.1 million this year and $335.6 million over 6 years. Since 2016, thanks to the support of Councilmember O'Neill, we've more than doubled the number of miles paved. And moving our roadways towards a state of good repair remains a top priority. We plan to invest $240 million in street paving alone over 6 years. We'll continue designing safer streets that promote zero fatalities and put people first through a $9 million investment in Vision Zero over 6 years. And we'll deliver on our goal of creating 40 miles of protected bike lanes by the year 2025. We'll provide funding for SEPTA of $4.7 million to support capital improvements at stations and other facilities. This is in addition to the annual $89 million local operating budget contribution the city provides to SEPTA. And we'll leverage grant funding through a $1.4 million appropriation for repairing bridges. Most notably, we'll be expanding street sweeping to all residential neighborhoods and commercial corridors citywide. We've learned a great deal from our street sweeping pilot in 6 neighborhoods last year, where we used capital funding to buy new mechanical brooms and hired laborers. Residents supported the program and expressed that they noticed their blocks were cleaner because of this program. In fact, 96% of the residents in the pilot areas supported expanding this program citywide. As a result of this pilot and because of the support of Council Members Parker, Heenan, and Squilla, we propose a $10 million to expand street sweeping to more neighborhoods in fiscal year 21 and $67 million over 5 years. We will use the data and recommendations in the pilot's evaluation to improve the program moving forward. As part of the 2020 program, mechanical cleaning will be expanded to new neighborhoods, and in some areas, cars will be required to move during sweeping operations. We're still finalizing the implementation plans, and full details of the 2020 program will be announced later this spring. Ensuring cleaner streets is a pivotal first step to creating more inclusive and resilient neighborhoods. Our city is experiencing a period of transformative economic growth, which has contributed to a reduction in our poverty and unemployment rates, as well as a rise in median incomes. While we are progressing, we must move faster to close the inequality gap and foster more affordable, stronger, and healthier neighborhoods. That is why our budget invests $6.6 million in fiscal year 21 and nearly $33 million from the general fund over the plan in PHL Rent Assist. This new program will stabilize households living in poverty with a focus on youth aging out of foster care, low-income working families, and individuals with disabilities. Its goal is to prevent eviction and the negative effects of displacement by filling the gap between what people can afford to pay and the cost of rent, which is a household's largest expense. A safe, stable place to live is a necessary foundation for people to participate in the workforce, for children to go to school, and for youth to pursue a credential and get the education to help them move out of poverty. Through this program, we will test innovative and cost-effective practices to housing stability and poverty alleviation, including through a cash transfer pilot program. To further drive economic mobility, raise incomes, and grow businesses, and support neighborhoods hit the hardest by crime and opioids, we're going to continue the implementation of our inclusive growth strategy. Our plan calls for growing quality jobs through entrepreneurship, increasing job training, and attracting and retaining businesses using new sector-based strategies. As championed by Councilmember Bass, we'll increase funding for the Department of Human Services by $600,000 to support wage increases for Summer Youth Jobs Program. This will be in addition to the $7.9 million we invest annually in Work Ready. And in partnership with Councilmember Sanchez, we'll continue making historic investments in housing affordability, homeless services, and home ownership. From FY19 through the end of this plan, we will make $115 million in contributions to the Housing Trust Fund. We'll continue our citywide efforts to combat the opioid crisis, drawing on everything we've learned during the first term from the Philadelphia Resilience Project and the Mayor's Task Force to combat the opioid epidemic. We recently established a new opioid response unit in the Managing Director's office. The unit will oversee targeted strategies to prevent addiction, connect more people to treatment, and save more lives from opioid overdose, while also helping our neighborhoods recover from the toll of the crisis. On top of our new investment of $1 million earmarked for the opioid work, I propose increasing funding for the Department of Health by $2.3 million to expand prevention efforts and address key quality of life concerns in Kensington. We make these investments because we are focused on ensuring fewer people suffer premature deaths because of this epidemic. And while I understand that some of you disagree with the policy and have concerns with how and when community members are consulted, we will continue to work with advocates to support opening overdose prevention sites to save lives and help connect people to treatment. We will take a greater role in I will wait. We will take a greater role going forward to ensure community conversations happen this year as they did extensively in 2018. I'm optimistic that we can find a path forward because I think we're more aligned on this issue than it may appear. For example, we all know someone who struggled with addiction, and many of us have lost someone we love to overdose. I also think we can agree that as a society, we failed an entire generation during the crack epidemic and the failed war on drugs because of bad policy. We cannot let history repeat itself simply because we're afraid to try new, albeit controversial approaches. And I know that we all agree that the city must do more to save lives and help our fellow Philadelphians reach their God-given potential. With that said, I want to be very clear that I refuse to look another parent in the face and tell them I didn't do everything I could to try to keep their child alive long enough to survive their disease. While we deal with these life-threatening crises, we must continue to address the climate crisis by working to build inclusive and resilient neighborhoods. Since 2018, we've been committed to delivering on the Paris Climate Agreement to reduce carbon emissions 80% by the year 2050, and we've established our own ambitious climate goals. I propose a $750,000 increase for our Office of Sustainability to expand the Green Works program with new staff and hire a Chief Resiliency Officer. This important role is to ensure climate adaptation is integrated into all city operations and work with external stakeholders to create citywide climate adaptation plans that direct private development towards climate resiliency. It also includes $250,000 in capital for LED lighting system upgrades and the GreenWorks Fund, and $181,000 in the Energy Office to meet climate and energy goals. Additionally, $250,000 is provided to the Philadelphia Energy Authority to provide solar panel incentives. Another major area of investment I'm thrilled about is rebuild. Our transformational infrastructure initiative made possible because of the Philadelphia beverage tax. We've committed hundreds of millions of dollars to rebuilding our aging parks, recreation centers, playgrounds, and libraries. Work has now begun at more than 60 rebuild sites across the city, representing over $120 million of new investment, mostly in high-need neighborhoods. I look forward to joining you at many groundbreakings and reopenings this spring. Next week, I will join Councilmember Gautier at Miles Mack Playground in Mantua to preview renovations starting on the playground and recreation building this spring. The improvements coming to Miles Mack are the result of many conversations with residents to make sure the city's investment reflects the community's needs and will deliver for the young people who call Miles Mack home. As critical and inspiring as we all agree rebuild is, it is not enough that we just transform the buildings and fields. We must improve the quality of programming that children, youth, and families can access. That is why we're investing $1 million to enable Parks and Rec to embark on an ambitious system-wide effort to provide higher quality programs and realign their staffing structure to better serve communities in need. And we'll increase funding for the free library to hire more staff, which will help reduce unexpected closures, and for the first time in recent history, maintain 6-day service year-round. The 6-year capital program includes $143.5 million for parks and recreation, including $50 million to help support the transformation of FDR Park into a regional recreational and environmental amenity. It will also bring to fruition the long overdue Bethel Burying Ground Memorial. The capital program supports investments in our neighborhood, commercial corridors, industrial areas, and economic and recreational improvements along both riverfronts. We will support improved pedestrian experiences around East Market and Chestnut Streets. And we will redesign Payne Plaza outside the Municipal Services Building to better meet the needs of residents and business owners coming to do business with the city. This project will also complement the transformation of Love Park and Dilworth Park to create high-quality public spaces for residents and visitors alike. Investing in our public spaces is as important as investing in our education system. We can't underestimate the return on investment and enhanced quality of life it brings to people who live, work, and visit our great city. Having the necessary resources to invest in our public spaces goes hand in hand with our 5th major priority of this term, creating a more diverse, efficient, and effective government. As Councilmember Green has called for, we're going to build on our financial stability to modernize services so we can deliver better customer services to residents and businesses. In fact, the plan calls for over $300 million in capital funding to modernize services. For example, we'll invest $69 million in OPAL, which will standardize, streamline, and integrate business processes across finance, procurement, and other departments. A $22.5 million in the Office of Innovation and Technology will be used for network infrastructure improvements and other applications used by departments. I'm proposing new investments that advance racial equity, reform burdensome fines and fees, diversify our workforce and contract recipients, and expand efforts to rid the workplace of sexual harassment. During the first term, we changed how the city handles claims of sexual harassment, improving the ways complaints are filed and investigated. This term, as I said, will add a new position in the Office of Labor Relations to increase its capacity to administer sexual harassment prevention trainings for all frontline staff. To advance racial equity, we will bolster the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion so it can examine and address institutional and structural disparities across the government. One major area that we are examining is the practice of administering fines and fees across the government, which too often comes with unintended consequences. Fines and fees are mostly issued to recoup cost of service and to curb problematic behavior. However, until now, they have mostly been enacted without regard for one's ability to pay. It's time to reconsider practices where fines and fees fail to meet their intended goal or, even worse, cause harm. This disproportionately impacts low-income communities and people of color. Councilmember Parker and I recently called on the Board of the Trustees of the Free Library of Philadelphia to eliminate fines for overdue materials, and I'm pleased that this policy went into effect last month. We can expect to see an increase in return materials, and more importantly, we hope that more Philadelphians will come back to access vital library services as a result of this policy change. We will continue this momentum by closely examining the impact of other municipal fines and fees, finding ways to reduce the financial burden on those who lack the ability to pay. When it comes to prioritizing better customer service for our business and residents, the Office of the Managing Director will lead a citywide initiative to enhance the customer experience for both groups. We're working internally to streamline various processes that customers engage in every day so we can improve efficiency and service delivery. We'll start the planning process for improvements and redesign of the municipal services building lobby and concourse using a human-centered design process. We'll complete an audit of all city buildings and properties to ensure compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act. And we'll create a business acceleration team at an investment of $530,000 to make it easier for businesses to work with departments, solve their problems, and navigate processes. These are just a few ways that we will work to make government run with greater efficiency. This agenda I just described is only possible because of the work we've done to improve the city's fiscal health. Without fiscal stability, the bold investments in education, community college, street sweeping, and modernizing our technology would not be feasible. But last year, we had the highest fund balance in the city's history. We continue to reduce the pension system's unfunded liability and should reach nearly 60% funded at the end of the plan. In fact, we're still on track for the pension system to be 80% funded by the year 2029 and 100% funded by the year 2033. That's a big deal. These investments are vital for the financial health of our city. And as Councilmember Dom has called for, we're maximizing revenue collections and reducing delinquency, having achieved a real estate tax collection rate of 96%. In order to promote growth throughout the city, the plan has over $200 million in wage and business tax cuts, including an extension and acceleration of reductions to the net income side of the BERT. We're requesting no tax rate increases, and we're making a long-requested change from the business community to market-based resourcing in the year 2023. We're also being prudent in planning for a potential economic downturn. We'll continue reserving at least $56 million a year to hedge against recession or potential federal funding cuts. And we're putting together another $195 million into the rainy day fund throughout the plan, bringing the total amount deposited to $229 million. Over the next few months, we will engage in a robust discussion of this budget and five-year plan. And it's possible that on some things we just won't agree, and that's fine. In this city with limited resources and many, many important but often competing priorities, honorable people working with the best intentions are bound to disagree. Yet, as we work through these priorities, I am confident none of us will lose sight of the greater goal we all share, to make Philadelphia safer, cleaner, healthier, and to give our children a chance to achieve their dreams. This is not a political speech, but I can't lose sight of the difficult drama that is playing out at the national level as we choose a president for the next 4 years. This nation is fractured to a degree that I can't recall since the turbulence of the 60s. It's sad, it's really sad. But I am proud of the fact that no matter what we see happening in Washington, those of us here in this chamber are determined to continue fighting for Philadelphia. I've said this several times over the last 4 years, and it remains just as true today. With the dysfunction of governance at the national level, it is clear that cities, large and small, must lead this country. All of us here, elected officials, staff members, advocates, concerned residents, all of us evidence of Philadelphia's ability to lead. Have no doubt, in 2020, we will step up and do what is right for our neighbors, for our region, and for our nation. We will not be stopped by polemics or partisanship. We will not be stopped by thinly disguised racist rhetoric. We will not be stopped by fake news or the lies of those who claim to be leaders. No matter where the United States is headed, we here in Philadelphia will not be stopped. So thank you all very much, and now let's get to work.
Yeah.
I just want to remind everyone, we have not finished the council session, so can't have people walking onto the floor. We're not done yet. Well, I ask the members that are not. Thank you. And one little last piece of business. Are there any speeches on behalf of the minority? I'm surprised. Any speeches on behalf of the majority? Chair recognizes Councilman Green.
Thank you, Council President. After a long legislative session, sometimes you need sustenance and nourishment. So I want to thank the Art Museum, as well as Johnson Controls, Philadelphia Energy Authority, and the Mayor's Office of Sustainability. We will be having a briefing for council members and staff regarding the Guaranteed Energy Savings Act. I chaired the EOP committee for that initiative and really did a great job at the Art Museum and want to provide that information to my colleagues and staff, as well as provide some nourishment for such a long legislative day. So thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman. There being no additional speeches, the chair recognizes Councilman Jones for a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that council stand adjourned until Thursday, March 12th, 2020 at 10 a.m.
Thank you. It has been moved and seconded. Council stand adjourned until Thursday, March 12th, 2020, 10 a.m. All those in favor say aye. The ayes have it. The motion carries. Thank you all very much.